course, the climate change. Now, that being said, as the host, China has plenty to share. It has successfully brought the epidemic under control. The economy is rolling. It is expected to grow at 6% or above, and it's now marching on a journey towards the second centenary goal, which is to build China into a great modern socialist country. And another important goal of the conference is to help the world better understand the CPC, because at this moment, some in the West are demonizing the party. For instance, Mike Pompeo said the CPC is the main threat of the 21st century. So this conference will present China's vision and thinking, and through this kind of transparency, it will spread awareness and understanding about the world's most populous country. Back to you.
Sure, thank you for that. And now, Cao Bing, let's check in with you. What can we expect to happen where you are in Shenzhen, and what have you been hearing from participants about the summit?
Yes, Mama, I'm here at the venue in the southern Chinese city of Shenzhen. Over 100 attendees have come to join today's meeting. They're from all walks of life and include Communist Party of China officials, Guangdong provincial officials, academicians, scholars, entrepreneurs, and model CPC members. The meeting will get started in a couple of minutes' time, and all the attendees will be able to join the World Political Party Summit through this big screen behind me. According to is the first of its kind, both in form and scale. And attendees are looking forward to the discussions and outcomes made today, especially at a time of such vast changes and challenges across the world. As its parallel meeting is being held here in Shenzhen, it is a good chance for us to learn a little bit more about the city and why it has played such an important role in the CPC's history. It's a place that witnessed unprecedented growth in terms of its social economic development and modernization. Over the past 4 decades since the CPC special economic zone in this area in 1980, this helped launch reform and opening up. Now the city is also contributing to the CPC's construction of a Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau Greater Bay Area to not only build a great new pattern of development on all fronts, but also enrich the one country, two systems cause. So there's no wonder that Shenzhen is selected as one of the venues inside China. Of course, there is a lot to be expected from today's great event. There is also from the southern Chinese city of Shenzhen.
Sure, thanks so much, our Cao Bing in Shenzhen and Cui Huiyao in Beijing. Well, Argentina Ambassador to China Sabino Vaca Navaja said he looked forward to Tuesday's summit. He said his country's president, Alberto Fernandez, is expected to deliver remarks as well. The envoy shared his thoughts with CGTN's Chen Ziyuan.
Ambassador, what's your expectation for the upcoming?
Thank you very much for the invitation. I have great expectations for the summit. The name itself points to the well-being of people and our assumed responsibility. I think this is a proper name based on the centenary and the activities that we've held at the National Stadium and Tiananmen Square. We've already had some clue about it. At Tiananmen Square, President Xi Jinping delivered a speech related to the international arena. Both President Alberto Fernandez and Xi Jinping share common views about an equal and harmonious world characterized by multilateralism. In that sense, there is a shared view about what President Xi calls a community with shared future for mankind. So this summit is very important for us within the framework of the 100th anniversary of the founding of the CPC.
And now let's get to our guests here. So, Professor Wang, today's summit is, of course, is about strengthening an exchange of international views and experiences among different political parties. But could you share with us some of the, historical experiences in which the CPC was cooperating, working with, and exchanging with other political parties, and why is this communication still crucial today?
Well, I think the Communist Party of China started out in the 1990s with a lot of support from the Soviet Communist Party, and so back then the Communist Party of China had exchanges with the Communist Party of Soviet Union and also other communist parties around the world. But more exchanges happened after the liberation, after the PRC was founded in 1949. So for example, in the 50s and 60s and 70s, the Communist Party of China had a lot of exchanges with socialist parties and liberation movements in the third world, including Africa and Southeast Asia and South Asia. And the idea was to, share experiences of liberation and fighting against imperialists and colonialists, on which the Communist Party had a lot of experience. And in contemporary era, under the Central Committee of Communist Party of China, there has been a lot of day-to-day activities in terms of party-to-party exchanges. So there have been, workshops, training sessions, and events like we are going to have today to share experiences. And in terms of governance, so the idea is that all the political parties, back in the history it was mostly socialist parties, but nowadays all political parties share common ground in tackling the difficulties we're facing. So back in the history, socialist parties had this same challenge of facing against the imperialists and colonialists. But nowadays we're facing common challenges like the pandemic, like climate change, and so on and so forth. In other words, there are always common problems that human beings are faced with. So it takes cooperation and exchanges and platforms for all parties to share experience. And I appreciate this opportunity provided by the CPC to the entire world.
Yeah, well, every political party has its own aspiration, and as Professor Wang pointed out, that their missions could change over time according to different circumstances. Now, how do you read into the uniqueness of the CPC, and how does it differ from the governance style of other political parties?
Well, going back, there's a lot of history that would take a lot of time. We could start talking about the Soviet model and things like that. But I think you can split it up into two things. The Communist Party today is a very pragmatic party. Especially over the last 40 years, there has not been any attempt to expand. Instead, it's been about what works. What are the vehicles that allow you to create a socialist society? And by socialist society, mean the old socialists in terms of all the economic factors being owned by the government or the people. It is simply, how do you achieve a reasonable, prosperous life for your people? And that has become front and center. Everything that we're talking about when you're handling the COVID, when you're providing jobs, when opportunity. This has been very, very much people-focused, and that's really what the lesson here and what they're willing to share. And want to learn from other parties. This is not a one-way conversation. This is a conversation where people share.
So for the people, this is where it really comes in, the centenary goal, the first centenary goal of the CPC, the construction of a moderately prosperous society. China has achieved that goal, and it's come a long way, and the people are really taking pride in the progress in every aspect of their lives. So entering into the new century, Professor Wang, how will the CPC's founding mission be given new meaning to?
Well, I think we first need to go back to the history of where the CPC has come from. In one word, it comes from people. We have to understand that the Orthodox Marxism and Leninism talks a lot about centralism and dictatorship. But it was the Mao Zedong thought that added an element of people into the formula. So Mao gave this speech in 1945 over the 7th Party Congress, where he, famously mentioned that it was people who pushed forward the historical movement. So he gave a lot of attention and importance to the concept and also the importance of people in the Chinese revolutionary experience. And in the governing era, after 1949, the Communist Party adopted the mass line policy, which gave a lot of attention to people's voices in day-to-day operation of the government and policy making. So in other words, the party came from the people. It takes very serious efforts in incorporating people's opinions into its own actions, into the policy making action, for example. Future, I think this formula is going to continue, which is to place people at the center of the governance and never forget the original aspiration, which is to serve the people. That's where the party comes from, and that's where the people is heading.
And certainly the path ahead is not without challenges. How could the CPC continue to live up to its ideal and really to reflect the aspiration of its 1.4 billion people?
Well, first you have to have an ideology and shared commitment to the future. And also, you have to bring along the next generation of leaders. And that's why there was such an emphasis in Xi's speech about how many people are coming from who are under 36. Because it's those people who are going to lead China to the 2049 goals, the 100 years of the founding of modern China. And you cannot, expect people who are too old, not there to do that. So it's kind of carrying a torch and passing it to future generations, instructing them on what the values are. I think that's why Xi was stressing the need to study history, to understand how China was created, what motivated. I went to Red Flag Canal, something where 300...
Excuse me, gentlemen, we have to leave you there. We're watching a live signal from the Great Hall of the People. It's the beginning of this very important political event, the summit between CPC and political parties around the world.
Leaders of world political parties.
Your Excellency Xi Jinping, General Secretary of the CPC Central Committee and President of the People's Republic of China, Your Excellencies, heads of political parties and political organizations, ladies and gentlemen, friends, greetings. Welcome to the CPC and World Political Parties Summit. Today, we're joined online by heads of more than 500 political parties from over 160 countries and 10,000 plus representatives of political parties. It is of great significance for us to exchange views under the theme of For People's Well-being, the responsibility of political parties, or how to improve people's well-being and embrace a better future for the whole of humanity. We're particularly honored by the personal presence of His Excellency Xi Jinping, General Secretary of the CPC Central Committee and President of China. Warmly welcome General Secretary Xi Jinping, who will deliver a keynote speech.
Your Excellencies, leaders of political parties, ladies and gentlemen, friends, on the occasion of the centenary of the CPC, I'm delighted to join you, leaders, political parties and organizations from over 160 countries, as well as 10,000 and more representatives thereof, at this cloud event to discuss the important question of working for the people's well-being and the responsibility of political parties. Over the past weeks, more than 600 political parties and organizations from over 100 have sent us 1,500 plus congratulatory messages on the CPC's centenary, conveying their goodwill and best wishes. On behalf of the Communist Party of China, I wish to express our heartfelt thanks. A few days ago, we celebrated the centenary with the grand gathering. Over the past 100 years, the CPC has united and led the Chinese people in realizing the great transformation through ceaseless efforts of the Chinese nation from standing up and growing prosperous to becoming strong. Over the past 100 years, the CPC has always connected the future with that of other peoples and steered the course of China's development in line with the trend of the world and the tide of times to promote common development and prosperity of all countries. The historic achievements made by the CPC support of world peoples. Here, on behalf of the CPC and the Chinese people, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude and friends of all countries who have cared about, supported, and helped the CPC and the course of revolution, development, and reform in China. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, the world today is undergoing profound transformation unseen in a century, amid which the trend of multipolarity and economic globalization is experiencing a sea change, and countries are becoming increasingly intertwined, interdependent, and interconnected. To cope with COVID-19, restart the economy, and safeguard world stability, the international community has made strenuous efforts. Political parties have also shown a strong sense of responsibility by making active exploration. While, in some places, wars and conflicts are still raging, famine and diseases remain prevalent. Estrangement and confrontation grow even deeper. The call for a better life from all peoples is becoming stronger. Today, humanity is once again at a historic crossroads. It is about hostile confrontation or mutual respect, closeness or openness, decoupling or cooperation, zero-sum game, or win-win results. The choice is in our hands, and the responsibility falls on our shoulders. Human race is an integral community. Planet Earth, its homeland. In the face of common challenges, no person or country can tackle alone. The only way out is to work together in harmony with one accord. Political parties, as an important force behind human progress, need to set the right course forward and shoulder their historic responsibility to ensure the people's well-being and human progress. In my view, political parties need to work even harder on the following. First, we need to shoulder the responsibility to steer the course by seizing and shaping the shared future for mankind. People aspire to affluence and contentment. They yearn for fairness and justice. Great times call for grand architecture, and grand architecture calls for great vision. Viewed from the perspective of my country first, the world is a crammed and crowded place full of competition. Viewed from the perspective of a global community with a shared future, the world is a vast and broad place full of cooperation opportunities. We need to heed the voices of the people, follow the trend of the times, and strengthen coordination. So, the interests of the people of one country will be kept in line with those of all others, and humanity will move forward towards a shared future. Second, we need to shoulder the responsibility to build consensus by upholding and promoting the common values of humanity. Despite differences among countries in history, culture, institution, and level of development, to the common values of humanity for peace, development, equality, justice, democracy, and freedom. With a strong sense for the future of mankind. We need to champion the common values of humanity, understand with an open mind the values of different civilizations, and respect other people's into reality. By doing so, the common values of humanity will be translated into the practice of individual countries to serve of their own people in a concrete and realistic way. Third, we need to shoulder the responsibility to promote development by bringing greater benefits to all peoples in a fairer manner. To the people's well-being. On the road to the well-being of mankind, no country or nation should be left behind. All countries and nations are equally entitled to development opportunities and rise to development. We need to face squarely up to major problems such as wealth gap and development divide, with particular attention given to underdeveloped countries and regions and impoverished people so that hope prevails in every corner of the world. As an ancient Chinese philosopher observed that those who only seek comfort for themselves will ultimately be rejected, and those who sacrifice their own interests for the success of others will be supported. Development is the right of all countries, rather than a privilege of the few. We need to enable all countries to step up development cooperation, which is shared by all. We need to bring greater equality, higher efficiency, and stronger synergy to global development, and jointly oppose the practice of seeking technology blockade, technology divide, and decoupling. I believe that, in the final analysis, any political manipulation for the purpose of sabotaging the development of other countries and undercutting the livelihood of other peoples will receive little support and prove to be futile. Fourth, we need to shoulder the responsibility to enhance cooperation by working together to address global risks and challenges. In the face of the ongoing COVID-19, we need to continue with a science-based response approach and advocate solidarity and cooperation so as to close the immunization gap. We must oppose the practice of politicizing the pandemic or labeling the virus. We need to work together to global community of health for all. In the face of terrorism and other common enemies of mankind, we need to pursue security and stability through cooperation so as to tighten the security fences together. In the face of the fragile ecological environment, we need to respect Mother Nature, follow her laws, and protect her so as to build a green homeland together. In the face of the severe challenges to human existence and development brought about by climate change, we need to be brave enough to take responsibilities and work as one to find a way of harmonious coexistence between man and nature. Fifth, we need to shoulder the responsibility to improve governance by enhancing our capacity to ensure people's well-being. There are different pathways. People of all countries are entitled to choose their own development paths and institutional models. This in itself is what well-being entails. Democracy is the right of all peoples, rather than an exclusive privilege of the few. There are multiple ways and means to realize democracy instead of a single stereotype. The judgment, democratic or not, should be made by their own people, not by the handful of others. To advance political democracy in a way that suits the national conditions of a country, we need to strengthen exchanges and mutual learning, improve mechanisms for communication, be fully aware of the public opinion, establish and enhance our governance capacity. By doing so, our capacity and efficacy to ensure the people's well-being will be elevated continuously. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, working for the people's well-being has with the goal of moderate prosperity in all respects achieved. China has embarked towards building a modern socialist country. The Chinese people's sense of fulfillment, happiness, and security have been lifted. To run our own house well and advance the lofty cause of promoting peace and development of mankind is the unswerving goal of the CPC. The CPC will continue to uphold the people-centered development philosophy, reflect upon the overarching issues of national rejuvenation, human progress in the greater context of time and space, and lead the Chinese people in creating an even better future through ceaseless pursuit and in an enterprising spirit. As history has taught us, we can only embrace the future when we embrace the world, and can only travel safe and sound when we walk together. The CPC stands ready to work with world political parties to live our dreams and act to create a better future. Let us always be builders of world peace, advocates of global development, and guardians of the international order. The CPC will unite and lead the Chinese people to press ahead with the Chinese-style modernization and contribute to humanity's search for ways to modernize. Proceeding from reality in everything it does, the CPC has led the Chinese people in finding, through trial and error, the path of socialism with Chinese characteristics. History and practice have proven and will continue to prove that this is not only the correct path that works, but also the sure path that pays off. We will unswervingly follow this bright path to ensure that development is pursued for both our own good and the benefits of the world. There doesn't exist a one-fits-all path to modernization. The one that suits you well will serve you well. Cutting one's feet to fit the shoes will lead nowhere. The efforts of all countries to independently explore the path to modernization that fits their national conditions should be respected. The CPC is willing to share with world political parties our modernization experience to enrich each other's box tools to modernization so as to bring well-being to their own people and all other peoples. The CPC will unite and lead the Chinese people and contribute to shared development and prosperity of all countries. Currently, economic globalization, despite considerable headwinds, is still moving forward with great impetus. On the whole, the impetus prevails over the headwinds. The trend towards opening up and cooperation remains unchanged and will not change. The CPC is world political parties and steer economic globalization towards greater openness, inclusiveness, balance, and win-win results. We stand ready to work with the international community to improve global connectivity and promote high-quality Belt and Road cooperation so that more countries and peoples the CPC will shoulder its responsibilities as a major political party and a major country and contribute to improve well-being of mankind. Poverty eradication has been a common aspiration of all peoples and an important objective of all political parties. Since the 18th National Congress of the CPC, China's 98.99 million rural residents living below lifted out of poverty, achieving the target of the UN 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development 10 years ahead of schedule. The CPC is willing to contribute more Chinese solutions and Chinese strength to poverty eradication cause worldwide. It will spare no effort to support international cooperation against COVID-19 and enhance the accessibility and affordability of vaccines in developing countries. China will work very hard to deliver its promise of carbon peak and carbon neutrality and contribute more to global fight against climate change. China is going to host the 15th meeting of the Conference of the Parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity, where parties will consult with one another on new strategies for biodiversity and embark on a new journey of global biodiversity governance.
当今世界正经历100年未有之大变局，世界多极化、经济全球化处于深刻变化之中。各国相互联系、相互依存、相互影响。
The world today is undergoing profound transformation unseen in a century.
挑战，促进经济复苏，
to cope with COVID-19, restart the economy, and safeguard
各个政党做出了积极的
world
探索，展现了责任担当。
stability. Political parties have shown a sense of responsibility.
和冲突仍然在持续，饥荒和疾病仍在流行，隔阂和对立仍在加深，各国人民追求幸福生活的呼声更加强烈。 今天，人类社会再次面临何去何从的历史担当当口，是敌视对立还是相互尊重？是封闭脱钩还是开放合作？是零和博弈还是互利共赢？选择就在，责任就在我们肩上。人类 是一个整体家园，面对共同挑战，
Facing the common challenges, any nation cannot tide over the difficulty by itself. Only by collaboration could we win this fight. Political parties, big force for us to tide over the difficulties. And we should fight for people's well-being and work for the progress of history. I believe that the political parties should do the following things. First of all,
中国共产党将积极推动完善全球
for the improvement of the world governance system and contribute more. The existing world governance system is based on the multilateralism. If we can apply the multilateralism better, then we can better solve the problem. The world order should be recognized by all the countries instead of being decided by few countries. The whole family of the human beings, and we should not seek hegemony only for the interests of several countries. We will fight against any acts to work only for the benefits of the few in the name of the multilateralism, and we will continue to work under the principles of the UN Charter. We believe that we should negotiate. Again, I'd like to stress again that China would forever remain a developing country, and we will try our best to increase the say and the representation affairs. Through the negotiations and collaboration of the world's political parties, we can strengthen the international cooperation. In the global governance, we should play a better role as the political parties. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, the road is still very long. If we continue with our efforts, then the future would be very beautiful. There will be some obstacles waiting for us along the road, but we will never give up our efforts. The CPC will work with the other world political parties to pick the correct side, and we will contribute to the building of a shared community of destiny and also make a bigger part of contribution for the world. Thank you.
Thank you, General Secretary Xi Jinping, for your important keynote speech. Now let's give the floor to Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, President of the African National Congress and the President of the Republic of South Africa.
Thank you, General Secretary of the Communist Party of China, President Xi Jinping, members of the Central Committee of the CPC, leaders from political parties from around the world, comrades and friends. It is indeed a great honor and privilege on behalf of the 109-year-old African National Congress of South Africa to convey to the Communist Party of China revolutionary greetings on the great and solemn occasion of its centenary. This is indeed a joyous occasion, not only of China, but of the world. For us as South Africans, this is a particularly auspicious moment because we are this month also celebrating the 100th anniversary of the formation of the South African Communist Party, the ANC. The South African Communist Party is a revolutionary organization that played a central role in our struggle for freedom and democracy. We are here today representing movements from different parts of the world, but we share a common desire, understanding for progress and development. Many of us who are participating in this summit owe a great debt of gratitude to the Communist Party of China for its unwavering support and solidarity as we have fought for liberation and independence, and as we have worked our nations together. We applaud the CPC's internationalist policies, which over the course of many decades have promoted multilateralism, understanding, and peace. As Africans, we deeply appreciate the progressive policies that China has pursued in supporting the development of our continent, Africa, and the aspirations of our people. We do this convinced and convicted that indeed China has been a good friend and a loyal friend to many of us on the African continent. Through measures like the Belt and Road Initiative and extensive skills development, China continues to support economic reform, instructive development, enhanced trade, and greater integration amongst African economies. We therefore welcome and commend the declaration by President Xi Jinping that the party will continue to work with all peace-loving countries and peoples to promote shared human values of peace, development, fairness, justice, democracy, and freedom. We concur with President Xi Jinping that we must continue working to promote the building of a human community with a shared future. As the world confronts the coronavirus pandemic, we are called upon to give material effect to the principles of unity, compassion, and solidarity. We are called upon to use our multilateral institutions to bridge the huge divide that exists between wealthy countries and poorer nations in access to medicines, vaccines, diagnostics, and other essential supplies. At this moment, as never before, to ensure that no person is denied access to COVID-19 vaccines because of where in the world they live, because of their gender, their race or language, or because of their personal circumstances. As political parties from across the world, we need to take a firm stand against vaccine imperialism and vaccine nationalism, not only because it is morally indefensible, but because it will defer for many years the end of this pandemic that the world is facing. As the African continent, we are seeking the support of the nations of the world for vaccines for our citizens, to develop our own vaccine manufacturing capacity, and to secure a TRIPS waiver at the World Trade Organization to rapidly expand global vaccine production. We would like to use this opportunity to thank the government and the people of China for the generous provision of vaccine equipment and other vital medical supplies for our continental response to COVID-19. We listened with intent as President Xi Jinping explained the journey of building a moderately prosperous China, the realization of the first century goal. We are inspired by the progress that China has made to eradicate absolute poverty in the largest developing economy on the planet. The historic achievements of the CPC have been made more possible because it has placed the needs and the interests of the people at the center of its work. We wholeheartedly endorse the statement by President Xi Jinping that the people are the true heroes, for it is they who create history. As the African National Congress, we are honored to have a strategic relationship with the Communist Party of China, and regard the CPC as a true and reliable and valued friend. I thank you and I say congratulations for the achievement of your 100 years of existence. May the CPC exist for another 100 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Ramaphosa. Now I would like to invite Mr. Nazarbayev, Chairman of Nur Otan Party and First President of Kazakhstan. Your Excellency, General Secretary Xi Jinping, dear heads of political parties, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank the President of the People's Republic of China to host today's summit. I'm grateful to you, my dear friend, for the invitation to take part in and speak at such a representative political event by world standards. I'm very pleased to personally congratulate you and all the friendly Chinese people on an important historic date of the Communist Party of China. I'm convinced that the successful rise and accelerated growth of the PRC in the 21st century is directly related to the leading role of the CPC in the country's development. Dear colleagues, the theme of our summit is very relevant and reflects the work of our Nur Otan Party, which I head. This year marks the 30th anniversary of the independence of my country. As the ruling political party all these years, we have defined our main priority from the very beginning. Its victories and achievements are of no value if they do not lead to the betterment of the well-being and society as a whole. Without false modesty, I can say that we have something to be proud of in this regard. Confidence and support of the party and compatriots, Kazakhstan by now has entered a group of UN countries with the highest, reaching 51st place among 189 states. Our country has built an economy that is the 41st in the world and the second in the Commonwealth of Independent States. It takes the 35th place among the most competitive countries on the planet. At the same time, our country's GDP has grown by 15 times to $171 billion, and GDP per capita has increased by 13 times to $9.1 thousand. The welfare of citizens has increased significantly, reaching the level of a number of Eastern European states and the second place in the CIS, where we are second only to Russia. Incomes of the population have grown 10 times. Social payments have multiplied. Poverty rate decreased 11 times. Unemployment rate has been reduced to 4.8%. Expectancy has increased from 67 to 73 years. The country's economy attracted more than $365 billion of foreign investments. We will continue to work to ensure a decent standard of living for citizens and the modernization of Kazakhstan as a socially Our goal is to be among the 30 most developed countries in the world. Dear friends, Chinese President Xi Jinping first put forward the idea of a new version of the Silk Road to Kazakhstan in 2013. I still remember that vividly. And we have kept close personal friendship. Being a golden bridge in the heartland of Eurasia and at an important connecting Asia and Europe, North and South, our country immediately supported the Belt and Road Initiative, which has already fully proven its effectiveness and usefulness for its participants. As a friendly neighbor of China's, we will participate in cooperation within the Belt and Road Initiative. Today, our Chinese colleagues initiated a new platform for multilateral dialogue, this time for political parties. Of my thoughts on this matter, first, the COVID-19 pandemic has once again proved that it is possible to global challenges through international partnership and mutual support. Political parties can and should play their positive role here. Now, the main area where it is necessary to use a cooperative approach is of COVID vaccines among all countries in the world. Kazakhstan has developed its own vaccine, Kazvac, which is currently undergoing WHO approval. Our government is already considering options. Second, the current crisis has put the poorest countries and the most vulnerable population in an even more unenviable position. Tens of millions of jobs have been lost. Many people have lost their livelihoods. And the World Bank estimates that over 120 million so-called new poor have emerged. We should also take into account the 160 million people currently living in conflict zones, as well as refugees displaced from their homes as a result of hostilities. In these difficult days, it is important for political parties to try not to leave anyone on the side of the road. We all need to work together to minimize the challenges of